Today's scripture lesson is from Luke, chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. Now, in the 15th year of the reign of the Roman Emperor Tiberius, while Pontius Pilate governed over Judea, Herod and Antipas ruled over Galilee. His brother Philip ruled over Iturea and Trachonitis. Lysanias was ruler over Abilene, and Annas and Caiaphas were the high priests. At this time, God called John, son of Zechariah, while he lived in the desert. John went from place to place on both sides of the Jordan River, inviting people to be baptized, to show the change and resolve in their hearts, and be granted fresh start by God. It was John about whom the prophet Isaiah wrote, "In the desert shouting is a lonely voice, amend your ways, for the Lord's coming. Down with the high and up with the low. The crooks be made straight and the roughs made smooth. This is the salvation for all to see." This is the word of the Lord.
The second Sunday in Advent is bringing us the story of John the Baptist, his sojourns in wilderness, and also a story about his baptism, or him baptizing people. But in order for us to fully understand and appreciate his message, we have to set him in the historical, political, and religious context. Because John the Baptist was by far not the only one doing something like that in that region. And I can give you several examples which kind of parallel John the Baptist. So bear with me. I think that in the end you will see why I am mentioning it. Most of it is sourced from Jewish historian Josephus Flavius. And we can start the furthest from the John the Baptist and go forward towards him. He was probably the one of the first who did this. So around year 56, when Porcius Festus governed Judea as a procurator, there rose so-called Egyptian prophet, a man who allegedly came from Egypt and who gathered a substantial number of people around him, and then took them for a round trip through the wilderness and brought them up to Jerusalem with a promise that he would command the city walls come down, like Joshua did at Jericho. Procurator Festus did not wait for it and sent troops and scattered them off. Then we are moving forward like 10 years, or backwards 10 years to 45, and during the rule of Roman procurator Cuspius Fadus, there was a prophet called Theudas. We are told that he took people to the desert, promised them he would divide the waters of Jordan and bring them back to the promised land. Again, Festus sent the heavy cavalry and stopped them before they even tried. In this case, they cut Theudas' head and brought it to Jerusalem. We also hear about a Samaritan prophet. It was not only in Judea or among the Jews, but Samaritan prophet in the year about 36, who gathered a large number of Samaritans and led them to Mount Gerizim, their holy mountain, to show them a treasure left there by Moses. At the time, Pontius Pilate was procurator and attacked them on slopes, killing great number of them. And it was the end of Pontius's governorship of Judea and Samaria. He was recalled to Rome because he made a mistake and massacred a number of high-born Samaritans. And that was his mistake and end of his governorship there. So these are like three examples. Jewish historian Josephus Flavius, our source, not only has these individual cases, but he also has a summary report of more, as he called them, charlatans, imposters, or deceivers, who misled many people, made them act like madmen, and go to deserts with promises of deliverance and social, economic, and political changes. John the Baptist clearly belonged to this group of prophets. While each prophet had some characteristic emphasis or feature in his message, there were clearly some similarities. They were taking people to wildernesses. Often they were crossing rivers or promising crossing rivers, toppling walls. In fact, if you know the Hebrew Bible, you will recognize they were repeating those old religious stories, old religious archetypes, reenacting Exodus and the taking of the Promised Land. And they were this unsuccessful, you might ask, why they had kept doing it. Because they were desperate people. Land speculators took their farms, repossessed them. Landlords and employers exploited them. You know about it, denarius of daily wage, and many being unemployed, so that they are waiting to be employed on the marketplace. That's another story or another parable. Romans crushed them with their unjust taxation. And the result was that rich were getting richer, while poor were literally destitute. And representatives of their official religion were either supporting this injustice or diverting attention to either secluded, privatized religion of Essenes, taking them away into the desert but not doing anything about it, or personal salvation, or purity rules, keeping Sabbath and the temple cult. Now you know why they kept doing it. Because God acted that way before. They knew those stories. And so they tried again. We were, or they would say, we are in a situation like Israelites in Egypt. Our only hope is to go out, to be liberated, to be given a new chance to take the land again. And do it again and better way round. Yes, it is somehow magical thinking behind it. But I told you they were desperate. And isn't God, in the end, God of liberation, God of new beginnings, God ordering peaceful society? So when you look at those people following John the Baptist or these other prophets, they were indeed refugees. They were refugees in their own land, hoping to leave it all behind. That's why they went out to those wildernesses and return to it anew and build it with new ethos and new, more just order. Now you can understand the quotation from Isaiah. It is about Israelites returning from Babylonian exile. But it is modeled, again, upon that escape from Egyptian slavery. And it is primarily about a road leading towards freedom and justice. So, where would be John the Baptist today? I'll twist that. Normally, what would Jesus do is the saying. What would John the Baptist do in our days? I'm certain that he would not be among religious fundamentalist types who are distracting folks with attacking the Planned Parenthood or LGBTQIA people, or manipulate them with hogwash of need for personal salvation, or seducing people with prosperity religion, transactional gospel. John would quickly recognize what is going on, that anxious people who have little are pitted against those who have nothing. I felt John's presence at the Jericho walks, and we were walking with Sanctuary Coalition of New York around the federal building, reenacting, just like John the Baptist or those other prophets, reenacting that story, expressing our hope for toppling those walls of injustice on behalf of dreamers and undocumented neighbors. That's important to say. Undocumented, not immigrants, but neighbors, our neighbors. And I am so happy that many of you volunteered with the sanctuary throughout the time and are still continuing to volunteer, taking down those walls that divide and bringing hope to this place. But John is also present at our southern border. In just one Sunday, we collected $330 in special offering. And together with money given from Peace and Social Justice Network and our refugee fund, we are forwarding to that cause now $7,700 to support our modern John the Baptist standing in the wilderness, in the deserts, in Arizona, California, New Mexico, and Texas, and across the border in Mexico itself. Standing by the Rio Grande or Colorado River with its canals and helping and bringing people in. Continuing in John the Baptist's calling, preparing path for the undocumented and for the refugees, for those alienated and disadvantaged among us, preparing path for divine justice. So to some degree, you all are John the Baptists, and I have sustenance for you. Laura, when she went to Yugoslavia, brought me an honey from Kosovo. That's one of the places John would be active in our times. So there is a wild honey from Yugoslavia. And you know what is coming. I have here chapulines. Those are roasted grasshoppers. from Mexico. You see, there are many parallels between the story of those prophets and John the Baptist and our own times. So during the coffee hour, see me and taste. Chapulines, they are good. They are roasted in spices and honey from Yugoslavia. Amen.